Hi, I'm Olivia. Today's lesson is about using the past perfect continuous. The past perfect continuous is used in many different sentences in English, so let's learn about it now. Yesterday, I was at work. It was a busy day. My manager, Chris, asked me to prepare the monthly sales report. I had been completing the report since 3 o'clock when my manager called me. He wanted an update from me. Let's go back to what happened in the office yesterday. What had I been doing when my manager called me? I had been completing the report since 3 o'clock when my manager called me. Look carefully at the sentence and the timeline. Let's answer the questions together. When did I start the report? At 3 o'clock. When did I stop writing the report? At 5 o'clock. How long was I completing the report for? 2 hours. Did I stop writing the report when my manager called me? Yes. Let's look at what happened yesterday after I left work. I had been driving home since 6 o'clock when I had to fill up my car with petrol. Look carefully and let's see what happened. When did I start driving home? At 6 o'clock. When did I fill up my car with petrol? At 7 o'clock. How long was I driving for? 1 hour. Did I stop driving when my car needed petrol? Yes. So, what is the past perfect continuous and when do we use it? I'll give you some time. The past perfect continuous is a tense that talks about an action that continued for a specific amount of time in the past. We use the past perfect continuous to show that an action continued over a period of time in the past. Usually, the focus is on the duration of the action. We also use this tense to narrate events that happened in the past. Let's move on. How can you construct a sentence with a past perfect continuous? Let's take a look at the first example again. I had been completing the report since 3 o'clock when my manager called me. We start the sentence with a subject, which is the pronoun I, followed by the helping verb had, which is the past form of have. After that is the past participle of the verb to be, been. Then you have the ing form of the verb. What about the different forms of the past perfect continuous? Let's start with the singular forms. In the table, you can see the subject pronouns, which are I, you, he, she, and it. The subject pronoun is followed by the helping verb had. Had is the past form of have. The helping verb is followed by the past participle been. Finally, there is the ing form of the verb. Let's go over the forms quickly. I had been completing. You had been completing. He had been completing. She had been completing. It had been completing. What about the plural form of the past perfect continuous? Let's take a look. In the table, you can see the subject pronouns we, you, and they, followed by the helping verb had. After had is the past participle been. Finally, there is the ing form of the verb. Let's check the forms. We had been completing. You had been completing. They had been completing. Here is an example. Mary had been studying Spanish since 9 o'clock when she stopped to drink some tea. In this sentence, Mary started studying Spanish at 9 o'clock and continued to study until 10 o'clock when she drank some tea. In spoken English, we use the short form. Let's focus on the short form. I had becomes I'd. So you remove the HA and replace it with an apostrophe and D. So for you, we, and they, you use you'd, we'd, and they'd. He had becomes he'd. So you remove the HA and replace it with an apostrophe and D. The same applies to she had and it had. They become she'd and it'd. Let's look at the forms quickly. I'd been completing. You'd been completing. He'd, she'd, it'd been completing. We'd, you'd, they'd been completing. Let's look at an example. He'd been playing football since 7 o'clock when he took a break. In this sentence, he started playing football at 7 o'clock. This action continued until he took a break at 8 o'clock. What about the negative form of the past perfect continuous? For example, I had not been completing the report. From the example, you can see that we add not before been, which is the past participle. In the table, you can see how to make the negative form of the past perfect continuous. Let's have a look at the forms. I had not been completing. You had not been completing. He, she, it had not been completing. We had not been completing. You had not been completing. They had not been completing. Let's look at an example. Dave had not been watching TV since 7 o'clock. In this sentence, Dave was watching TV for a period of time before 7 o'clock. But after that, he stopped watching TV. What about making questions with the past perfect continuous tense? To create yes-no questions, you add had before the subject plus been and the ing form verb. Let's look at an example. Had you been playing tennis since 5 o'clock? To create WH questions, you add the WH question word followed by had before the subject, plus been and the ing form verb. Let's look at an example. What had you been doing since 9 o'clock? Let's do some quick practice. Notice the stress. I had been completing the report since 3 o'clock when my manager called me. Let's repeat the sentence together. I had been completing the report since 3 o'clock when my manager called me. Great job! Well done! Now you can use the past perfect continuous. Today, we reviewed what is the past perfect continuous, when we use the past perfect continuous, using the affirmative and negative forms, and making questions using the past perfect continuous. Thank you for watching. See you later. Bye!